The great chamber of the Galactic Council was full. Every seat was taken. The room, shaped like a circle, floated above a blue planet, lit by artificial stars. Thousands of alien leaders sat in rows, their faces calm, but cold. In the center stood one man, Ambassador Race Calder of Earth. He was tall, with silver hair and sharp eyes. His black suit was simple. No armor, no weapons. Just a man standing alone in front of an empire that no longer respected him. A deep voice echoed across the room. "Earth is no longer allowed access to trade routes," said a three-eyed alien named Vuran, head of the council. Another voice followed. "Your colonies on the outer rim are to be dismantled," said a creature with tentacles for a mouth. "Your people must return to Earth. You are not allowed to expand further." Race stood still. He didn't blink. Then came the final blow. A tall, lizard-like diplomat smirked. "We are also placing Earth under monitoring. You are too unstable, dangerous. For peace, your voice is removed from this council." A wave of laughter filled the room. Dozens of alien leaders clapped their hands, hissed approval, or smiled with amusement. They expected Reyes to protest, to plead. He didn't. He simply looked around the room, eyes moving slowly from one smug face to another. He took one step back. His jaw tightened. For a moment, silence returned. Then Reyes spoke. "I warned you." Just 3 words. Cold. Final. No emotion. He turned his back on the council and walked toward the exit. One of the alien guards stepped forward. "You must wait for clearance, Toe." Reyes didn't even pause. His eyes met the guards. The alien froze, unable to speak. The doors opened. Reyes walked through them and was gone. Inside the chamber, no one spoke for a moment. Then the laughter returned, louder this time. "He walked away like he still matters," someone joked. "Earth will bark, but it won't bite," said another. But not everyone laughed. A thin, insect-like diplomat named Kriva watched the door where Reyes had left. Her antennae twitched nervously. "You fools," she whispered to herself. "You don't understand what you've done." 5 days later, above Earth. The stars above Earth burned brighter tonight. In a small observation tower on an alien cruiser orbiting the planet, a young cadet named Lyran watched the skies through a viewing window. His 4 fingers gripped the edge tightly. The skies were full. Not of stars, but ships, thousands of them, rising from Earth's surface like angry wasps from a disturbed nest. No banners, no warning, just silence and steel. He swallowed hard and turned on the live broadcast from Earth. Emergency lights flashed across every colony channel. Earth wasn't speaking. It was moving. Behind him, an officer barked orders. More ships rising from the north. "What is happening down there?" No one answered. Lyran turned his eyes back to the sky. He remembered 5 days ago. He had watched the council meeting from this very ship. He saw Race Calder walk away. He had laughed then. He wasn't laughing now. "This is how it began," he whispered. "We pushed them too far." The Galactic Council expected anger. They expected threats, protests, and fiery speeches from Earth. But instead, they got silence. No response. No communication. Nothing. It was the kind of silence that made even the loudest alien leaders feel something cold in their spine. High above a frozen moon, in the command room of the Council Defense Network, Admiral Varnock stared at the report in his claws. "Earth has gone dark," he growled. "They're not transmitting anything. Not even civilian chatter." A junior officer blinked. Could it be a communication failure? "No," Varnock hissed. "Earth doesn't fail. This is deliberate." On the holographic map, the human-controlled zones blinked red, offline, disconnected. Trade stations, colonies, border posts, all of them stopped responding one by one. Quietly. No explosions, no distress signals. Just silence. And that silence spread like a shadow across the galaxy. Back on Earth, inside a deep underground facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Race Calder stood before a massive glass screen. Across the screen was a live feed of Earth's surface. Factories, once used for building homes, vehicles, and farm drones, were switching modes. Now, they built something else. Something hidden. There were no parades, no speeches, just people working. Focused, calm, efficient. Riss stood beside a woman in a white lab coat. Her name was Dr. Elira Wan, head of Earth's Defense Technologies. "They think we're broken," she said. Riss didn't look at her. "Let them. The activation protocols are in motion. All 12 arc silos are warming up." He nodded. "It's time." Meanwhile, on Mars, a Council scout drone flew low over red dust, its scanners beeping quietly. There were no human colonies nearby. At least, there weren't supposed to be. Then the drone's sensors picked up movement. A massive chunk of Martian rock, larger than a city, suddenly opened. Hidden doors, rusted by centuries of sand, slid apart slowly. The drone zoomed in, confused. Inside the dark opening, something moved. A tall figure stepped forward. Not a machine. Not quite human either. A mix of metal and muscle. Armor black as night. Eyes glowing faint blue. The figure looked up, directly at the drone. The feed cut off. At the Council's observation center, alarms rang. The technician screamed, "Drone 319 has been destroyed. We have no signal from Mars." A senior officer looked at the final frame from the drone's camera. He zoomed in. The figure, it wasn't just a soldier. It was a ghost from Earth's past. "Impossible," the officer whispered. That program was shut down. A single word appeared on the hacked screen. "Awakened." Elsewhere, on a Council carrier ship, Cadet Lyron sat in the mess hall, pushing food around his tray. No one was speaking anymore. Everyone had seen the Mars footage. Everyone was afraid to say it out loud, but they all knew. Something had changed. The humans weren't angry. They were preparing. Lyron looked out the window. Another wave of ships was rising from Earth's surface. Bigger ones now. Sharper. Deadlier. Some of them looked new, nothing like the ships Earth used before. These weren't for defense. They were for war. "But they said Earth wouldn't fight," he muttered. Across from him, an older officer leaned in. "They won't fight," the officer said. "They'll end it." That same night, far from the Council's eyes, in a forgotten chamber below the Himalayan mountains, a name was whispered by an AI. Project Eidolon. Status: reactivated. A hidden chamber opened, and a figure stepped out of cryo-sleep. He looked human, but his heartbeat was wrong. Too slow, too controlled. A monitor flashed in red. Subject 01. Kale. Status: operational. Purpose: final deterrent. Back in the sky above Earth, Cadet Lyron watched quietly from his post. The stars were fading behind the number of ships launching. He could see their engines, their armor, their shape. They weren't heading outward. They were circling the planet, forming a wall, a fortress. He turned to the officer nearby. "Why aren't they answering our calls?" The officer looked scared. "Because they're done talking." Lyron stared back at the planet. "This isn't peace," he whispered. "This is something else." They thought it was gone. They thought it had been shut down, buried, destroyed, erased. But deep beneath Earth's crust, behind layers of steel and firewalls, the program was still alive. Not a weapon, not a ship, not a strategy. It was a person. Location: Earth, sublevel Omega Black facility. Riss Calder stood in a dark corridor, the lights above humming softly. Cold air drifted around him. Ahead, a sealed vault hissed open, releasing a long-forgotten silence. Inside was a chamber the Council never knew existed. On the far end stood Kale. He looked like a man, but something about him was off. His movements too smooth, his breathing too slow. His eyes were calm, but behind them was something terrifying. Rez stepped forward. "It's been a long time." Kale tilted his head. "You came back." "I didn't want to," Rez said, "but they pushed us too far." Kale looked down at his arms. Thin white wires pulsed just beneath his skin. He flexed his hand slowly. "Is the council still blind?" "Worse," Rez said. They laughed. Kale's lips barely moved. "They won't laugh much longer." Years ago, Kale had been part of a secret Earth initiative, Project Eidolon, a final fail-safe in case diplomacy ever collapsed. He had been enhanced not with just machines, but something more dangerous. Choice. He could think, learn, adapt, and unlike any machine, he could feel rage. But after peace was declared centuries ago, he was put into cryo-sleep, frozen and forgotten. Until now. Elsewhere, deep in the Council's data vaults, an alarm blinked. An intelligence analyst opened a red-coded file that had been locked for decades. Earth CLASIFIED//forbidden ARCHIV EIDOLN. She began to read the data, and her eyes widened with each line. Human subject capable of single-handed fleet destruction. Adaptable mind built with multi-species combat awareness. Last recorded test result. Neutralized 13 capital ships alone. She stopped reading. "Sir," she said to the Admiral, "this isn't a myth. He's real." Location: Mars, Surface Control Station. On the Martian plains, Council drones swarmed the surface. Hundreds searched for hidden bases. They scanned, drilled, searched for signs of weapons. Suddenly, a beacon lit up from a nearby crater. It wasn't a trap. It was a message. The feed displayed a still image of Kale. Then a voice followed. "You watched Earth suffer. You took and took and took again. But now, Earth no longer needles. This is your final warning." Then silence, and the drones began to shut down, one by one. Not destroyed. Hijacked. Back on Earth. Kale stood in front of the activation platform. A team of human engineers worked fast, sensing his neural interface with the command network. Dr. Elira Wan whispered, "We've never tested the full link." Rise stepped beside her. "We won't get another chance. Once he connects, the Council will feel it." Kale sat calmly in the core chair, wires connected to his spine. Data streams flowed into his brain. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in centuries, Earth's deadliest weapon opened its mind. Galactic Border Station, outer edge of Earth's territory. Council fleets waited in formation, massive cruisers, dreadnoughts, and support ships. Over 1,000 vessels. They watched Earth's silence with growing fear. Then the stars shifted. No, not stars. Ships. Earth's ships. They came from black space, quiet and cold. No signals, no chatter, not even heat signatures. Just movement. Then the Council Admiral noticed something terrifying. "They're not forming a line," he said. "They're circling us." That's when the main screen lit up. Cal's face appeared. Just his face. Calm. Emotionless. "I was made to be peace, until you made me war. You had your chance. Now you will see what silence truly means." The screen went black. Then Earth's ships accelerated. Cut to Cadet Lyron's POV. Lyron sat frozen at his post. He couldn't even speak. The human fleet wasn't shooting. They weren't yelling. They were just moving. Too fast, too perfect, like they'd practiced this moment for generations. His commanding officer whispered, "Pull back. Now. They're going to strike." "But they haven't fired," Lyron said. "They will," the officer replied. "And when they do, we won't even have time to scream." They had laughed, mocked Earth, stripped it, pushed its people into silence. Now, the silence had become their nightmare. Outer edge of Earth's territory, Council flagship. Admiral Theron stood on the command deck of the Council's flagship, Vigilance Prime. His hands trembled, not from age, but from the fear crawling up his spine. "They're moving again," the sensor officer said. "No signals, no orders, just coordinated movement." Theron stared at the screen. Earth's fleet was a black ring, silent and precise. They didn't form a wall or a battlefront. They closed a trap. One of his junior officers whispered, "What kind of war is this?" Theron didn't answer, because he knew. This wasn't war. It was execution. In orbit over Neptune, Kale stood in Earth's command chamber, fully connected to every ship in the fleet. His voice echoed through the neural link, calm and cold. Strike formation. Phantom echo. Across the fleet, human ships disappeared. Literally. The Council screamed on their comms. They vanished. Their ships are gone. But they weren't gone. They had cloaked, using a tech the Council swore was impossible. Seconds later, Council ships began exploding, one by one. Not from missiles, not from lasers. From the inside. Each blast was surgical. Engines burst. Command decks vaporized. The human fleet had boarded them, without being seen. Council Communications HQ, Far Sector. Panic. That's all that remained. Multiple fleets destroyed. Dozens of ships lost in seconds. Human ships are inside our own formations. One Council leader screamed, "Where is the human commander? Who is leading this madness?" The screen flickered. Kel's face appeared again, still expressionless. "You thought Earth was alone. You thought peace made us weak. But peace taught us patience. Now we are done waiting." On the planet of Chorus, neutral observer world. Cadet Lyran watched the reports flood in. His training officers tried to explain, but they had no answers. Lyran just stared at one feed. A Council battleship had been carved apart in space. No debris, no fire. Just, sliced, clean, perfect. Human ships floated past it like ghosts. No cheering, no music, just silence. "Why aren't they celebrating?" Lyran asked. His teacher answered quietly, "Because they don't feel victory, just purpose." Council Assembly Hall emergency session. Council leaders shouted, argued, begged for sense. The humans have gone mad. They've betrayed the peace. They're killing without warning. But then a voice echoed through the chamber. It didn't come from a speaker. It came from their personal communication devices. "You broke the peace when you mocked the wounded, when you taxed the starving, when you laughed at the broken. We asked for dignity. You gave us chains. Now, your chains are melting." Rice Calder stepped into the chamber, not with soldiers, not with ships, just alone. He walked to the center and looked every alien leader in the eye. "I warned you," he said softly. You laughed. Scene cut. Earth's ground response. On a distant Council colony, troops stood alert, expecting a ground invasion. But the humans didn't land. Instead, the sky turned black. From orbit, Earth's drones blotted out the sun. They didn't fire. They hovered, waiting. Council soldiers aimed their weapons, but the drones didn't move. Until one voice came through. "We do not kill the innocent, but we will erase the guilty." The drones split off, one for each Council general, each weapons lab, each politician. They didn't need to fire a single shot. The guilty ones surrendered themselves. Back in Kel's command core, Kale sat perfectly still, eyes glowing faint blue. Data poured through him. Tactical decisions, enemy weaknesses, human losses, 0. He whispered one command. "Activate protocol. Mercy threshold." Elira Juan, watching from the control deck, looked stunned. "You're giving them a chance." Kale nodded. One message, one moment. Final scene, across the galaxy. All Council systems froze. Every terminal. Every screen. A single countdown appeared. 0:10:00. And then Kel's voice. You have 10 minutes. End all attacks. Release all Earth prisoners. Return what you've stolen. This is your final gift from humanity. A choice. Cliffhanger ending. Cadet Lyran watched the countdown tick lower. 8:41. 8:40. His commanding officer whispered, "Do you think the Council will surrender?" Lyran shook his head. "I think they don't understand who they're dealing with." He looked up at the screen as the Earth fleet surrounded another world. "I think it's already too late." The silence was deafening. Council leaders sat in their grand chamber, once filled with pride and laughter, now cold and empty. They had seen Earth's strength, felt its fury, and now they trembled. The clock on the screen showed 2 minutes remaining. Location: Council Headquarters, Core Command Room. Admiral Theron stood by the war table, his knuckles white on the surface. His entire body was rigid, frozen in fear. We've never seen anything like this," the tactical officer whispered. "You're telling me," Theron muttered. "Humans don't fight like this. They've become the war." A loud beep echoed across the room, and the countdown clock blinked red -30 seconds. Theron's eyes widened. His mind raced. Why aren't they attacking? They could wipe us out in an instant. One of the senior council leaders, Governor Ilara, clenched her fists. "They're waiting for us to beg." Back on Earth, Kale stood in a room, the floor covered with intricate maps of the galaxy. Raiz Calder entered, looking exhausted, but there was something in his eyes, something that burned with purpose. "Are we really giving them a chance?" Raiz asked, his voice rough. Kale didn't move. He didn't need to. "We are not the monsters they think we are," Kale said. "But if they refuse to listen, we will have no choice." Raiz stared at the screen. "You know they'll never surrender. The Council has too much pride." "We have more," Kale replied. "And we are patient." In the Council chamber, final moments. The clock ticked down. 10 seconds. Governor Ilara stood, her face pale. "We can't survive this. We can't." Admiral Theron's voice was hoarse. "No, we can't, but we can beg." As the clock hit 0, a single, calm voice came through the transmission channels. "We have seen your choice. Now, make yours." The message echoed through the hall. Governor Ilara slammed her fist on the table. "We will not kneel before these savages." But she was the only one standing. The other council leaders, once filled with pride, now looked down in shame. Across the galaxy, a decision is made. On the surface of the Council's largest capital world, soldiers gathered, weapons ready. But the atmosphere wasn't one of resolve. It was one of fear. The ground shook as Earth's ships descended into the atmosphere, hovering in perfect formation above the capital city. The human fleet did not attack. They hovered, waiting. And on the ground, a tremor ran through the people, the streets filling with whispers. Are they waiting for us to act? In one of the many command centers, a trembling general spoke into his comm device. "Sir, the humans, they've stopped firing. They've given us a chance. A choice. Council communication. A final plea." Back in the Council's chamber, the leaders sat in silence. The enormity of their choices weighed down on them. Theron's voice broke the stillness. "We cannot fight anymore." Governor Ilara, her face hard, looked up. "You've already betrayed us. You've broken us. Your fleets, your endless demands." She turned to the screen. "Please, make it stop." Her voice cracked. "Please, let us make peace." Earth's fleet, ready to end the war. Back on Earth, Raiz Calder's gaze remained fixed on the screen. Kale stood by him, as silent and still as ever. He had warned them. He had given them a choice. The galaxy now trembled before Earth's might, waiting to see if the Council would answer the call for peace or face utter destruction. Cut to Council flagship. Final moments. Theron's voice, hoarse and weak, cracked through the comms. We beg you. Please, we'll give you what you want. Just stop this destruction." The plea rang out across the galaxy, reaching every Council ship, every planet they had subjugated. Back on Earth, Kel's decision. Kale turned to Rice. "It's time." Rez nodded, but there was no joy in his expression. He had fought for this moment for too long. "Do it," Rice said quietly. The Earth fleet was ready. Their silent ships, positioned perfectly, began to activate once more. But this time, it wasn't war. This time, it was peace. But peace with a price. The galaxy held its breath. One message, one choice. The Council had asked for peace. Now, they would learn what it cost. Location: Council headquarters. Emergency command room. The room was silent. Dead silent. Admiral Theron stood before the massive viewport, his eyes fixed on the Earth fleet that hovered eerily calm, just outside the atmosphere. Their ships seemed to swallow the light, like shadows waiting to strike. "Is this it?" Governor Ilara whispered, her voice shaking. "Is this how it ends?" Admiral Theron didn't respond. His mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. He had watched Earth's ships destroy their enemies, dismantling entire fleets with surgical precision. But what was this silence? Why weren't they attacking? He had hoped, no, prayed that their plea for peace would be answered. Back on Earth, Riss Calder stood on the command deck of the flagship, his eyes locked onto the communication feed. Kale was beside him, his face unreadable. "I've done everything I could," Race said, his voice heavy. The Council begged for peace. But what now? What happens if they don't keep their word? Kale didn't answer immediately. He was too focused on the screen, where the countdown timer was flashing. They had given the Council a choice, but would they honor it? Council fleet. The first move. The seconds stretched like hours as Earth's ships remained perfectly still. And then, finally, something happened. A single Council vessel began to move. Slowly, cautiously. "We're being hailed," the comm officer said. "It's a message from their fleet." The transmission screen flickered to life, and Governor Ilara's face appeared. We want peace," she said, her voice filled with hesitation. "We've realized the gravity of our actions. We offer you everything. Full cooperation. We'll stop the war. We'll stop all of it." But Riss could hear the fear beneath her words. It wasn't surrender, it was panic. Kale leaned in, his gaze unwavering. "Don't trust them. They are trying to buy time." In the Council chamber, a risky decision. Back in the Council's headquarters, tension was suffocating. The leaders had tried to convince themselves that the humans would show mercy, that this was just a fleeting moment of power. But they were wrong. Theron's eyes flickered between the messages, the transmissions, and then, finally, to Ilara's pleading face. "We need to act now." Theron barked. "They're not coming in peace. They're waiting for us to make a mistake." He turned to the others. "Prepare the fleet. If we don't do something, Earth will strike. And when they do, we'll be nothing but dust." But not everyone agreed. Governor Ilara stood slowly, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "We gave them our word. We agreed to peace." "You don't understand," Theron shouted. "If we let them walk away now, they will never stop. They'll destroy us all." He slammed his fist on the table. "We fight now, or we lose everything." The room fell into an uneasy silence. Each leader knew the consequences of their next move. Back on Earth, Rice and Kal's final decision. As the tension mounted across the galaxy, Rice and Kal exchanged a quiet look. "The Council won't back down," Rice said, his voice tinged with regret. "They never will." Kal nodded slowly. We've given them everything they need. Now it's time to show them what happens when they make the wrong choice. Rice exhaled. If we do this, there's no turning back. Kale met his gaze. There never was. The last gamble. Earth strikes. Without warning, Earth's fleet shifted. The ships that had been silent suddenly came to life, engines roaring with power. They didn't move forward. They surged upward, into the galactic clouds. A voice boomed across every communication channel. Council, you wanted war. You will get it. The Earth fleet activated its advanced weapon systems. This wasn't just an attack. It was the final strike. Kale had prepared for this. He had given them the choice. He had waited for them to decide. But now, Earth was choosing for them. Council response. A fleeting hope. Back in the Council command room, panic spread like wildfire. The screen before them displayed Earth's ships mobilizing, shifting into a battle formation more powerful than any they had ever seen. Admiral Theron scrambled to respond, barking orders into the comms. Activate the defenses. All ships, full readiness. But as Earth's ships came closer, Theron knew. It was too late. The calm before the storm. And then, a strange silence filled the air. The Earth fleet was moving toward them. No longer on defense. No longer waiting. They were moving to end this. Governor Ilara whispered, "Is this the end?" Kel's voice echoed in her comm channel, crisp and final. "This is the last gamble. Your choice ends now."